Welcome back to the Gains for Girls podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you check us out anywhere where you get your podcast. Be sure to check us out at OutKick.com. Today's guest, I am so excited for. You can expect to hear some British accents in today's episode because these are the 5 female nurses coming from Darlington, from the United Kingdom, over in England, across the pond. But 5 courageous nurses who have been speaking publicly following the launch of a landmark legal case brought against the NHS after these nurses were told that they needed to broaden their mindset and to be more inclusive after asking not to share a changing room with a male identifying as a woman. You can probably imagine what these women have faced in terms of the backlash, in terms of the stifling of their speech, but really the experience that they have is horrendous. Medical professionals, nonetheless, where biological reality, not only does it matter, it is crucial, it is necessary that we are remaining true to what is objective, and again, a truth that we have never struggled to understand. Could not be more excited. So check out the interview here with the 5 Darlington nurses. Well, thank you guys, or should I really say you girls, for joining the Gains for Girls podcast. I saw your story break a few months ago, and in reading what you guys went through in terms of the policies in place, in terms of the threats and the intimidation and the stifling of your speech and of your expression, I saw so many similarities to what we're facing here in the U.S., what I faced personally as a female athlete. And so I could not be more excited to be able to talk with you guys. Of course, you are across the pond. And so if you are listening or watching, you all have the pleasure of hearing a bunch of British accents, which are really nothing better than. But really, I just wanted to give you guys the opportunity to be able to give a synopsis of the policies of which I'm referring to, the instances that led you to where you are now, and taking this firm and public stance for women and for the truth. And so we'll start with Lisa, if you kind of want to go over who you guys are first and foremost and what you've been through.
So we're Darlington nurses. We work in the day surgery unit at Darlington Hospital. And about a year ago, we realised there was a man, a trans woman that was using our changing room. And it's kind of sort of slowly filtered through. I think because of the shift patterns and everything else, not everybody was aware of it at first. So there was kind of a little bit of time where we would just go in the changing room and one of us would hear this man's voice and think, what? And then speak to somebody else. And I think we were all quite sort of hesitant to speak to even each other about it at first, because we just weren't sure how everyone was going to react and how everyone was going to feel about it. And then over time, obviously, there was more and more of us had sort of mentioned things. And then it got where Beth mentioned her concerns to our junior sister on the unit. And that was about August last year, I think. And from there, we've sort of been told that it was being investigated, that the matrons were discussing it. To then sort of not really hearing anything else, and everything, just this kind of radio silence from the trust that, it's a very sensitive issue. That's kind of all we got. It's just a sensitive issue. And I think they just very much have hoped that we were going to just shut up.
And while the investigation was being conducted, all the while, this male was still using the locker room.
Yeah, very, very much so. So we have sort of heard this male works in the operating department, and we had sort of heard from the staff that worked with him that though he goes by a female name, he doesn't really wear particularly female clothes, just kind of jeans and a t-shirt and trainers. And we've been sort of told by colleagues of his that he's stopped taking female hormones, that he was, that because he was wanting to try and get his girlfriend pregnant, which, a sexually active man in a female changing room just made, I think, all of us feel hideously uncomfortable. So we'd raised it again to the point where I think a letter went to HR, and we just hadn't heard anything back. And I think was that when Beth went to she went and sought legal advice after that, because I think we've just really felt like we've been ignored for such a long time.
Of course. So you mentioned this was in August of last year. So you all have been fighting this for nearly a year now to really no of any sort of administrative help. Anyone who is looking out for you as staff members, as women. Beth, I want to ask you, so you went through this. What people I don't think could possibly understand, unless you have been through it, are the feelings of utter violation. Again, speaking personally here, the feelings of utter violation, the feelings of, and of course it's awkward, it's embarrassing, it's uncomfortable. It's pretty innate to cover yourselves when someone with a male gaze and a male's voice is in that locker room. Can you kind of just walk through the raw emotion and the feelings of being a woman who is non-consensually being exploited while also simultaneously being exposed to a naked male? And in this case, a naked male who, again, I'm not one to speculate on anyone's life or quite frankly care what anyone does behind closed doors. But in this case, as it appears, a man who is it's almost like a camera should just pop out and be like, oh, you've been on an episode of Pranked.
Yeah, it's utterly humiliating for us. Completely humiliating. Any sort of dignity that we had. I mean, we don't enjoy changing in front of each other anyway. We kind of do it sort of privately and, in a specific way. So we don't expose ourselves to anybody. But then to hear a male voice and then see a man in the change room, it's just unbelievable. And we've had nurses who've had panic attacks before they've gone on this shift because they've felt so unsafe, so humiliated. We have one colleague who has past trauma, sexual trauma. She just can't cope with this. It's been horrendous for her, absolutely horrendous. And you just feel like there's no support at all, like that we are the people, we're the ones causing the problem. And that they are the trust, the hospital are prepared to defend this male over their female colleagues.
No doubt. I think it's important how you mentioned just wanting to feel safe.
Yeah.
And when you word it like that, I mean, it's essentially as if you're demanding the bare minimum.
Yes,
wanting to feel safe in an intimate space. I saw a quote from one of you. It was listed in an article that said word for word, it says, "For me, it is about wanting to feel safe. I don't want to be panicking or looking over my shoulder while getting ready to work in a hospital caring for patients. We should not have to feel afraid. People say you are brave for speaking out, but why should it be brave to speak out on these issues? Why should we even have to?" I think that is so beautifully put. And again, I think it's important you mentioned women who have in some way experienced some sort of sexual violence or have been sexually harassed or in pretty horrific instances, women who have been raped.
Yeah.
I've talked to a woman who has been raped in a bathroom setting previously, who then was forced to undress in front of a man. And again, I don't think you could possibly understand what that's like unless you, unfortunately, have had to experience that. But the policy that was in place at the hospital, would one of you be willing to speak what this policy is, what it says, Joanne, and why specifically it needs to change, if you know the policy?
You're probably asking the wrong person because my memory is absolutely shocking, right? I can probably remember bits of it, so I think Beth's the person that knows it off by heart, aren't you, Beth? I feel silly now, but yeah,
So
I'll ask
basically,
Beth.
remember.
yeah, so basically it allows a transgender person, as soon as they fully declare that they are living in the gender that they want to live in, they are allowed access into the facilities that they want to go into. They don't have to prove anything. They just have to self-ID and they're allowed in. There's no sort of, you've got to be dressing like a female or taking hormones or anything like that. You are allowed in regardless.
So it's
very
entirely
vague, isn't it? It's very vague, put it that way.
Yeah, it's entirely self-ID, which,
Yeah.
I mean, it leaves it up for, to be totally frank, perverts.
Yeah, well, this is the issue, is that there's a loophole. Anybody can access the facility. They just have to say, well, I identify as a female, let me in. And one of the most insulting things about the policy was that if it states that if we have a problem with it, if there are any females that have a problem with this policy, they have to go and change elsewhere.
Wow. And this is a policy that's in place across the NHS, so the National Health Services.
I think
similar policies.
it differs slightly. The wording might be different, but the general feeling of it is there.
And when we queried the policy, we were told that we needed to be educated and trained, which is absolutely disgusting. We're like professional women who have degrees, masters, and a lot of qualifications. We're not idiots, but we were made to feel like absolute idiots and worthless.
Yeah, the qualifications that you guys have, not to mention the fact that you all, I mean, what they're essentially asking you to do is ignore your gut instinct, to let your guard down, to get naked anyway, to just shut up and get naked anyways, which is, again, asinine, I think is an appropriate way to describe it. After all of this, after you guys, I understand you anonymously at first, kind of took an anonymous stand, but then were brave enough to publicly put your names and your faces to this. What was the response that you had from the hospital system, from colleagues, after going public?
I think most colleagues in our department have been quite supportive, haven't the girls?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there have been, and our line manager's been absolutely amazing. We've had a bit of hostility from theatre staff, because obviously they're friends with this person, and I think they actually feel, they feel sorry for this person. That, how do you think, girls, that we've been made to feel?
We're being discriminatory, we're bullies, but that's so not what we are, and we haven't bullied or discriminated anybody, really. We're the ones that have been discriminated. Yeah,
I think people are forgetting the bigger picture, what we're doing it for. And that's the main thing. We're doing it, because we want a policy change, really. We need to get a change in policy so that, female changing rooms are safe and just for females. But I think people are sort of not seeing that.
Yeah, it's more, they think it's an attack on this one person.
Yeah.
That we're just trying, and we have been sort of, you don't say anything. You literally, if you complain, it's like you're transphobic. And we look after transgender patients, it's like part of our job. We get patients in who are transgender. And our trust actually has a policy that, well, in fact, the NHS has a policy that says that transgender patients should not be mixed with, with other patients in that bay. So, if you've got somebody who's identifying as a woman, they should not be nursed in a bay with women. So there's a policy for patients, but actually not for us. So, go figure. I don't work that one out.
I saw a post online of a little flyer that went up on the door to the changing room that you guys had been
Pathetic.
Can you speak about what was on this poster and kind of the timeline? This was after you guys spoke out. Do we know who put the poster up on the door?
No.
Nobody's taking any responsibility. Nobody's owning up to it. It was just there. Just
wasn't there for long, mind, but it was there.
And what did it say again?
So
Inclusive change area.
Yeah.
Inclusive changing area.
Do not remove this sign at the top. Do not remove this sign at the bottom, in a very rainbow mix of coloured, like just sort of silhouettes of people, I think. Inclusive changing area. Yeah.
We've been following, of course, the U.S. really globally. It seems the world is a mess right now. But I have a husband who is British. He is from England. And so we tend to follow the political environment overseas in the UK. And we saw recently there is a new Labour government in place in the UK. And they've been weak on being able to answer whether women can get pregnant, whether women can have penises. I believe the new foreign secretary, for example, he went as far to say that it's not accurate. It's not biologically accurate to say that only women have cervix, which again, as medical
I've seen that, yeah.
so you see this. Again, to my understanding, I believe there was a conservative, and I definitely use air quotes. There's been a conservative government over the last 14 years in England. But nonetheless, the trans issue, the gender ideology movement as a whole, it seemed to have crept in even under conservative leadership. And so does it make you nervous now with progressive leadership that gasoline will essentially be poured on the fire in regard to these issues with the changing of the power to the Labour Party? And how do you think, I guess, this will impact the UK and women's rights as it pertains to healthcare, but really even broader than that as a whole?
I think we're all very nervous about it. You know, the Labour have been very, very supportive of you know, of the whole issue, I guess. You know, and they've kind of gone away from protecting women's rights, and they sort of started to backtrack as the election was coming up. And you know, we got Keir Starmer saying, you know, women, you know, we should protect women's biological safe spaces and stuff. But you know, there's been a whole load of stuff gone before where, you know, there's been rapists in women's prisons. You know, it's like, really, you can't even believe that this has been allowed to happen.
No.
You know, but it has. So yeah, I think we feel nervous about where it's going to go, and I think that's partly why we kind of want to keep pushing this issue with our trust. We want to highlight it so that more women can say, actually, you know, we aren't happy with it.
Yeah.
Because I think there's been a lot of women. Before we highlighted this to our trust, there were a lot of women who were unhappy in that changing room, who have maybe tried to go to management and say something, and have been basically made to feel like they were absolute bigots, transphobes, and they've been silenced. And so we don't want that. We want to keep pushing. We don't want this to carry on. We want things, you know, we want to put the brakes on.
Yeah, and we want to give other women in the same position as us the courage to come forward as well, and just to know that they've got a voice and don't be scared to use it, because we have been scared, and obviously we've never done anything like this before. And there's times where we've all thought, I was going to swear then, sorry. Thought, damn, are we doing the right thing? But that have happened recently with the trust and how they've handled things have just confirmed to me that we're nothing more than a payroll number at the end of the day, and we've got to fight, and we'll just keep going until we get get what we want, basically. And we've got a lot of support. We've had a lot of fan mail, like letters from people, cards, just on the whole, a positive encouragement to keep going with this. And we're very passionate about it. And I think the trust think we're just going to back down at some point and not carry it through, but we will.
I love it. Yeah, I've seen where you guys have, I mean, you vowed to keep fighting. You've said you won't be threatened, you won't be ignored. You mentioned the support. I've seen public support from J.K. Rowling for you guys, which has got to be pretty cool to be on the receiving end.
Brilliant.
People like Sharon Davies, who have been really at the forefront and fighting much longer than I mean, I have than you guys have, fighting for these issues. And so it's got to be pretty cool to receive that support from very high profile, influential people.
And yourself, Riley.
Exactly.
Yourself included.
My son even knows who you are, and he's 17. And I was like, and I said your name, and he was like, "Oh my God, she's been on somebody's show," and he said she's really famous, Mum. I was like, "All right."
That's kind. Oh my goodness. Well, I feel just like you guys said, I don't feel like this should be the platform that I have been able to build for saying something so simple, for saying something that everyone already knows. Everything we've talked about on this podcast has been nothing profound, not to be, not to take away from what you guys are dealing with, but what you're saying is so basic. It is so simple. It is crucial. And just as you said, Joanne, it is contagious. Courage is contagious. It is a rare and lost trait. It is a rare and lost characteristic. But I believe it's making its comeback, but only because of people like you guys. You mentioned also just some of the scare tactics and, again, the stifling of speech. I saw where some international nurses were scared to sign on to the initial letter because they didn't want to have their visas revoked. Again, relating to my own experience with my husband being foreign and moving over to the United States. We've been married for over 2 years and they still won't give him his green card. We have tried to follow up with whoever we can to find out, hey, we've been married 2 years. Illegals are coming across the border and they're getting a whole passport. He can't even get a green card, to which they've come up with different excuses time and time again. But I largely believe that it's because of the position and the stand and the persona that I have. So again, similar tactics to what you guys face, another parallel.
Yeah.
When you speak of this pressure and intimidation, where do you feel mostly that it's coming from? And can you share a few examples of, again, what has made others or yourselves intimidated to speak out?
I think it's mainly coming from the operating department. We call it theatres here in the UK. The staff around there, I think, have kind of been silenced. They've been told, do you have a problem with this? If so, raise your hand. And I mean, that's not conducive to people being honest about their feelings. And also, if you've got a problem about this, knock on our door and basically they're going to get disciplined. That's the feeling they've got from this. I mean, my experience is that, people have been very supportive to my face and then, gone on Facebook and had a tirade about how appalling it is that we've done this. And my other experiences are, people are wanting to talk to me about this, but they're fearful that other members of staff will catch me and this other colleague talking. So they've kind of pulled me into a room to one side and had a chat and said, do support you, but I'm just terrified that people are going to see us together. And to the point where they've said, can I leave the room first? And then can you leave 2 minutes after me? I mean, it's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
I had a chat with a member of staff from theatres, and they'd said that they'd raised the issue with theatre management over a year ago when they first realised a certain person was using the facilities, and they were told to not mention it, that they can't speak, they can't complain about it because they they weren't being inclusive, and that they would be in trouble if they brought the subject up again. So I think that's the culture that the staff there are living with, really.
Yeah, they're being shut down. You're told not to speak about it.
Yeah.
Wow. And again, globally in so many different settings, which I think it's truthfully probably the most concerning, the most harmful in a medical professional setting. You are the people who are supposed to be providing care, reporting on statistics, because ultimately, I mean, healthcare statistics, women's health studies, they're already incredibly underfunded, under-researched, and now when you include male data in these statistics, it again harms women. This issue, this story is, I imagine I speak for you when I say that this is a lot bigger than Rose, which is the male posing as a woman, and it's impacting again people across the UK, but really across the world. Do you feel it's accurate in saying that?
Definitely. I don't think we realise how wide the problem is, really, and I hope, like I say, that we find out through people's courage that they're willing to speak out and hopefully help them to try and put things right and get better policies in place. And really, the NHS is such a massive organisation here in England. You would think that they would have a handle on this and be at the forefront, but they're just not at all. And I'm quite shocked. I was quite shocked, really, when all this came to light. But yeah, it's quite sad, really. But I hope we can change that.
What do you think the message is that they're sending to you, the NHS, as women? What's the message that you feel as if you're receiving?
Put up and put up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put up.
Women,
Put up, pretty little women.
Yeah, the minority is more important than 51% of the population, really. We don't matter. We don't matter at all. Yeah.
Powerful. I think it's powerful saying that, because again, that's exactly the way I would describe it. That you're not worthy. Not only do you not matter, you're not worthy
That's it.
of changing privately. You're not worthy of in our case being able to compete fairly. You don't get to call yourself a champion. No, you exist to validate the male's feelings.
Yes.
It's a terrible message to be sending to young girls, to women. As girls, I mean, growing up, at least I know I was taught to not put myself at risk in situations like this. But that's exactly what the NHS is doing to you guys, and again, to countless other women in your same position. You guys have said many times that you're going to fight. I guess my question for you is, and kind of final question here, is why?
Because we have to.
Yeah.
We have to. There was on the news this morning, it was saying that violence against women has gone up by 40% in the UK in the last 5 years. I mean, those statistics are really, really scary. And we need to do things to make ourselves safe. And that's why we keep fighting.
And to be at work and not feel safe is shocking. And in a hospital, I mean, we should feel safe, especially being one at work. The employer has a responsibility to keep you safe, and they're just not doing that.
Yeah.
And it's got to stop. And yeah, we'll just keep going.
Yeah, and I think women have fought so long for their rights as well, and it's just been ripped from us, not even slowly. This is like ripped from us. And it's absolutely unbelievable. And I've got a daughter, and I do not want this for my daughter. She is worth more than that. She's worth more than a man being allowed to walk in and change in front of her. She's worth more than that. So yes, I am willing to fight to the bitter end for this.
Really, I mean, we watched a video that you'd recorded, talking about your experience, and kind of that you were like, why has nobody said anything? Why has nobody put a stop to this? This is so obviously wrong.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, because we didn't realise quite how difficult it was to actually do that. We didn't realise that we were going to be made to feel like such horrible transphobic people, that we were going to be, treated the way that we've been treated. We honestly, we weren't expecting that. And to know that that's how so many other women have been made to feel, we kind of, we want them to know that, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're not wrong to feel uncomfortable taking your clothes off in front of a man who's pretending to be a woman.
Totally. It is not you who needs to be re-educated. It is not you who needs to go to training or to therapy to learn how to cope with seeing male genitalia. No, but again, that's what you guys and women across the world are being told. So I am inspired by you all. And the stand that you have taken and how that you have done it with a sense of grace, as well as entirely unapologetic, which is, again, a lost art in being true to yourself and standing up for what is right and standing up for what is fair and just and moral. But you guys have done it so beautifully. And so I appreciate you. We will be following along and amplifying all of the updates that you guys have on your case, your suit, anything that we can do, we certainly will, because again, this is important for you guys personally, for your daughters, but it sets the precedent for the rest of us, the rest of the world. And so thank you guys for sharing and for coming on.
You're welcome.
No
Thank
problem.
Thank you, Riley.
Thank you.
Riley.
I hope that you are feeling as inspired and encouraged by these nurses as I am. We will be watching for updates, hopefully good updates in the near future. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Again, check us out at OutKick.com. Like, subscribe, be sure to leave us a review anywhere where you get your podcasts so the message that we are spreading can be sent out far and wide. And we will see you all again next week. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. The fight to save women's sports and restore common sense is far from over, and I continue the conversation every week. So make sure to catch more content over here and subscribe to OutKick so you don't miss a thing.